They told her the baby died. Medical complications, they said. She believed them for 1,095 days, until a 3-year-old girl whispered one word that shattered everything. Scottish Highlands, November 23, 2024, 11:47 at night. A woman stands in a $15 million estate. She is 42 years old, a cardiac surgeon, and she is about to hear the voice of the daughter she never knew survived, Dr. Vivian Ashford. Retired at 39 after her hands started trembling, $800,000 in medical debt from experimental treatments. 3 years ago, she signed a surrogacy contract for $250,000. They told her the baby's heart stopped at birth. They lied. Before midnight, 3 truths will emerge. Why a 612-year-old vampire king believes a dead woman bore his heir. What happens when a child speaks for the first time, and how far a mother will go to reclaim what was stolen. 3 years earlier, 2021, Boston. Vivian Ashford's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She held them under the surgical lamp in her private office at Massachusetts General Hospital, the finest cardiac surgeon on the East Coast. 12 years of flawless operations, 473 lives saved. And now her fingers trembled like autumn leaves in a storm. The diagnosis came 3 weeks ago: focal hand dystonia, neurological damage from repetitive precision movements. Incurable, career-ending. She recognized the bitter truth immediately. She'd spent over a decade repairing damaged hearts. Now her own body betrayed her through the very hands that made her exceptional. The medical bills arrived in waves. Experimental nerve treatments, stem cell therapy, consultations with specialists in Geneva, Tokyo, Singapore. Each promising hope, each delivering failure. The numbers climbed: 300,000, 500,000, $800,000. Her savings evaporated. The brownstone she'd bought in Cambridge went into foreclosure. Her retirement fund dissolved like sugar in rain. At 39 years old, Dr. Vivian Ashford sat in an empty apartment with trembling hands and a mountain of debt that would take 3 lifetimes to repay. The advertisement appeared in a medical journal. Small, discreet, easy to miss if you weren't desperate. Medical surrogacy opportunity. Healthy women aged 25 to 40. Compensation $250,000. Genetic compatibility, screening required. Discretion guaranteed. Contact Wolf Medical Institute for preliminary consultation. Vivian stared at those words for 40 minutes. Her coffee went cold. Traffic sounds from the street below faded to white noise. $250,000. Enough to clear half her debt. Enough to keep her apartment. Enough to stop the collectors from calling at midnight. She made the appointment. The Wolf Medical Institute occupied a renovated warehouse in South Boston. No sign on the door, no receptionist, just a steel entrance with a buzzer and a camera that tracked her approach. When she pressed the button, the lock clicked open immediately, as if they'd been waiting. The interior defied the exterior. White marble floors, walls of frosted glass, recessed lighting that cast no shadows. Everything sterile, everything expensive, everything designed to convey competence and discretion in equal measure. A woman in silver scrubs appeared from a side corridor. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, efficient movements. Dr. Ashford, punctual. This way, please. No introduction, no pleasantries. Just brisk efficiency that reminded Vivian of her own operating room demeanor. They walked through corridors that smelled faintly of antiseptic and something else. Something older, like ancient libraries or wine cellars. The consultation room held a single chair, a medical examination table, and a man who looked like he'd stepped from a Victorian medical text. Tall, severe features, gray hair swept back from a high forehead. He wore a white coat over an immaculate suit. His hands were pale, almost translucent. When he smiled, it didn't reach his eyes. "Dr. Ashford, I'm Dr. Matthias Wolf. Please sit." His voice carried an accent she couldn't place. European, but aged. Like wine that had turned, he gestured to the chair with hands that barely moved. Economic. Precise. The movements of someone who wasted nothing. Vivian remained standing. The advertisement mentioned genetic compatibility screening. For what exactly? Wolf's smile widened a fraction, approval in those cold eyes. Direct. Excellent. I appreciate efficiency. He pulled a folder from his desk. Thick. Official. My client is a noble family, European lineage. The wife suffers from a rare genetic condition that prevents her from carrying a pregnancy to term. They require a surrogate, someone with exceptional health markers, superior cardiovascular genetics. Your medical records suggest you're an ideal candidate. My records are private. In my profession, Dr. Ashford, very little remains private when the compensation is sufficient. He slid papers across the desk. The contract is straightforward, 6-month pregnancy. We'll use advanced IVF techniques. The embryo will be implanted after genetic compatibility is confirmed. You'll receive comprehensive medical care throughout. $250,000 upon successful delivery. The child will be raised by the biological family. You'll sign non-disclosure agreements. No future contact. A clean transaction. Vivian picked up the contract. 30 pages of legal language. She recognized the structure. Airtight, designed to protect the family's identity, to ensure her silence, to make her disappear from the child's life as if she'd never existed. What if there are complications? All medical expenses covered. Our facility has resources that exceed any hospital in North America. Wolf leaned back. I won't insult your intelligence, Dr. Ashford. You're here because you're desperate. $800,000 in debt. No income. No prospects. This contract offers salvation, but it requires sacrifice. The question is simple. Can you carry a child for 6 months, then walk away? Vivian's hands shook. She pressed them flat against the contract to hide the tremor and $250,000. Half her debt, a chance to breathe, a chance to rebuild. All she had to do was carry someone else's child, give birth, sign papers, walk away, pretend it never happened. She thought about the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. Was this harm, giving a child to a family that desperately wanted one? Or was it harm to bring a life into the world only to abandon it? Her hands trembled harder. I need 24 hours to consider. Wolf nodded. Expected. Of course, but Dr. Ashford, understand this. The window for genetic compatibility is narrow. If you decline, we'll move to our second candidate. The opportunity won't be extended twice. She left the building with the contract in her bag, walked 7 blocks through Boston rain, sat in a coffee shop and read every word. The language was clear, clinical, brutal in its honesty. She would be a vessel, nothing more. The child would never know her name. 24 hours later, she returned to the Wolf Medical Institute, signed every page, initialed every clause, sold 6 months of her body for the price of financial survival. Dr. Matthias Wolf shook her hand. His palm was ice cold. Excellent decision, Dr. Ashford. We'll begin the compatibility screening immediately. If all proceeds as expected, implantation will occur within 2 weeks. The screening took 6 hours. Blood work, genetic sequencing, cardiovascular stress tests, neural scans. They mapped every system in her body with technology she'd never seen in any hospital. When the results came back, Wolf's smile was genuine for the first time. Extraordinary! 98.7% compatibility. I've never seen markers this strong. You're perfect, Dr. Ashford. Absolutely perfect. The implantation happened in a surgical suite beneath the main building. White tile. Surgical lights. The smell of sterilization and something underneath it. Something organic and old. Vivian lay on the table in a hospital gown. The anesthesiologist was a woman with hands as cold as Wolf's. She inserted the IV with practiced efficiency. Count backward from 100, Dr. Ashford. Vivian made it to 93. When she woke, Wolf stood beside her bed. Behind his surgical mask, His eyes gleamed. Successful implantation. The embryo is developing beautifully. You'll stay here for 48 hours for observation. Then we'll transfer you to a private residence for the duration of the pregnancy. Congratulations, Dr. Ashford. You're carrying the future of a very ancient bloodline. The pregnancy was unlike anything medical school had prepared her for. The child grew faster than normal. At 8 weeks, the ultrasound showed development equivalent to 12 weeks. At 12 weeks, 20. Vivian's body changed with impossible speed. Her belly swelled, her breasts ached, her skin stretched. But stranger than the physical changes was the feeling, a presence, a consciousness sharing her body. Sometimes, late at night in the private residence where they kept her, she felt the child move. Not kicks, not normal fetal movement, something deliberate. As if the baby was testing the boundaries of her prison. Vivian would place her hand over her abdomen, press gently, and the child would press back. A game, a connection. Mother and daughter communicating through flesh and blood and the thin membrane between existence and waiting. She began talking to the baby, telling her about the world outside, about rain and coffee shops and the way Boston looked in autumn, about cardiac surgery and the mathematics of blood flow, about all the things she would never have the chance to teach this child herself. At night she would place her hand over her heart, feel her own heartbeat, then move her hand to her belly, feel the second heartbeat, smaller, faster, a rhythm that matched hers but danced to its own tempo, 2 hearts, beating in the same body, for 6 months. Then one would stop and the other would carry on alone. The labor started at midnight, 32 weeks instead of the expected 40. Vivian woke to contractions that felt like her spine was being torn from her body. She screamed, pressed the emergency call button. Within minutes, medical staff surrounded her. Wolf appeared like a ghost at the foot of her bed. "It's too early," Vivian gasped between contractions. 32 weeks. The lungs won't be developed. "Trust the process, Dr. Ashford." Wolf's voice was honey over ice. "This child is extraordinary. She'll be fine." They wheeled her to a surgical suite she'd never seen, deeper underground. The walls were stone, ancient. The surgical lights were wrong, too bright, too white. They hurt to look at directly. Figures in masks and gowns moved around her like priests performing a ritual. The pain was inhuman, splitting, as if her body was being torn in two by hands she couldn't see. Vivian screamed until her voice gave out, screamed until there was no air left in her lungs, screamed until the world dissolved into white agony. Then, cutting through the pain, she heard it. A sound that made time stop, a baby's cry, strong, healthy, furious at being thrust into cold air and bright lights. Vivian lifted her head, reached out with shaking hands. "My baby, please, I want to see her." The masked figures moved around her, blocking her view. Wolf appeared beside the table. In his arms, wrapped in white cloth, something small moved. Vivian caught a glimpse. Moonlight hair, tiny hands curling and uncurling. "Please," Vivian whispered. Her strength was fading. Blood loss. She could feel it, the cold creeping up from her extremities. "Just let me hold her, once." Wolf looked down at her. For a moment something like pity crossed his features. Then it vanished, replaced by professional detachment. "I'm sorry, Dr. Ashford." His voice was gentle, terrible in its gentleness. "The child, her heart. There was a defect, congenital. We tried, but—" "No." Vivian's voice was barely a breath. "No, I heard her cry. She's alive. She's right there." Trauma plays tricks on the mind. Wolf stepped back. Another figure approached. The anesthesiologist, the woman with cold hands. She held a syringe. "You need rest. To heal. We'll help you through this." "No, no, please, my baby. I heard her. I heard her." The needle pierced her arm. Ice flooded her veins. The surgical suite dissolved. The lights dimmed. The last thing Vivian saw before darkness claimed her was Wolf turning away. The bundle in his arms, moving. Alive. Definitely alive. Then nothing. She woke 3 days later in a private room. Sunlight streamed through windows. Her body ached. Empty. Hollow. Like someone had carved out her center and left nothing but echoes. A nurse sat beside her bed, different from the ones during the pregnancy. Warmer. More human. "Dr. Ashford, you're awake. How do you feel?" "My baby." Vivian's voice was gravel. "Where's my baby?" The nurse's expression crumpled with practiced sympathy. "I'm so sorry. The doctors did everything they could. The heart defect was too severe. She didn't make it. I'm truly sorry for your loss." "No, I heard her cry." Sometimes in traumatic births, the mind creates memories to cope with the grief. It's not uncommon. The nurse squeezed Vivian's hand. "You were very brave. The family wanted me to give you this." She handed Vivian an envelope. Inside a check, $250,000, and a single sheet of paper. "Dr. Ashford. Though our daughter did not survive, your service will not be forgotten. The compensation as agreed. We ask that you honor the non-disclosure agreement. What happened here must remain private. We wish you healing and peace. With gratitude, no signature, no names, just typed words and a check that felt like blood money." Vivian stared at that paper for an hour, trying to remember, trying to separate truth from trauma. She'd heard the baby cry, she was certain, but her memory of those final moments was fog and pain and drugs. Maybe they were right. Maybe grief had invented a sound that never existed. She took the money, paid half her debts, signed the final non-disclosure papers, walked out of the Wolf Medical Institute into a Boston afternoon that felt wrong, too bright, too normal, as if the world shouldn't still be spinning when hers had stopped. For 3 years, Vivian tried to forget. She moved to a small apartment in Vermont, stopped practicing medicine, spent her days walking mountain trails, and her nights trying not to dream about a baby's cry that may or may not have been real. The phantom ache never left. Sometimes, late at night, she would wake with her hand pressed to her abdomen, feeling for a heartbeat that was no longer there, listening for a cry that haunted the space between sleep and waking. She told herself it was grief, misplaced mourning for a child that was never meant to be hers. She told herself to move on, to heal, to forget. But mothers don't forget, even when they try, even when forgetting would be kinder. The body remembers what the mind tries to erase. November 23, 2024. 3 years and 8 months after the birth. Vivian sat in her Vermont apartment, hands steady for the first time in years. The experimental treatments had finally worked. The tremors had stopped. She could perform surgery again if she chose, but the desire had died somewhere in that underground surgical suite in Boston. The package arrived via courier, no return address, just her name on the label and a weight that felt like destiny. Inside, a USB drive, no note, no explanation. Vivian plugged it into her laptop with hands that started shaking again, not from nerve damage, from something older, deeper. A knowing that lived in bones and blood. The video file opened. Timestamp November 20th, 2024, 3 days ago. Location unknown. The footage showed a grand hall, stone walls, vaulted ceilings, candlelight casting shadows that moved like living things. In the center of the frame, a small child sat on the floor. 3 years old, maybe 3.5. She had hair the color of moonlight, pale blonde, almost white, almost. It fell in soft waves around a face that made Vivian's breath stop. The child looked exactly like Vivian had at that age. Same bone structure, same nose, same mouth, even the same way her eyebrows drew together when she concentrated. The little girl played with wooden blocks in complete silence. No sounds, no babbling, no childish chatter. Just focused, intent silence, as she built a tower with hands that moved with unusual precision for her age. Then the video ended. replaced by a single line of text. Your daughter lives, Thornfield Hall, Scottish Highlands. Come as night physician. November 23rd. She needs you. Vivian played the video 17 times, studied every frame, the child's face, her movements, the way she tilted her head when a block fell. It was impossible. The baby had died. They'd told her. She'd seen. No, she'd been drugged. She'd been told. She'd never actually seen. What if they'd lied? What if, for 3 years, her daughter had been alive? The rage came first, hot, blinding. 3 years, 1,095 days. While Vivian mourned, her child had been living, breathing, growing without her. Then came the fear. If this was real, if they'd stolen her daughter, what else had they lied about? Who were these people? What did they want? Finally came the decision, the only one possible. She would go to Scotland, to Thornfield Hall. She would find the truth. And if they had taken her child, if they had let her grieve for a ghost, then there would be a reckoning. Dr. Vivian Ashford booked a flight to Edinburgh, used her medical credentials to create a cover story. Visiting cardiac specialist, research consultation, hired by Thornfield Medical Holdings for a private consultation. The documentation looked legitimate because she made it legitimate. 3 years away from surgery hadn't dulled her attention to detail. The flight was 7 hours. She didn't sleep, didn't eat, just stared at the darkness outside the window and imagined 1,000 scenarios. Most of them ended in violence. Edinburgh to Thornfield Hall was another 4 hours by car. North into the Highlands, through landscape that grew wilder with each mile. Mountains rose like broken teeth. Mist clung to valleys. The road narrowed to a single lane that wound through forests older than countries. Thornfield Hall appeared through the fog like a manifestation of Gothic nightmares. Black stone, towers that clawed at low clouds, windows that reflected nothing. It sat on a cliff overlooking a valley that dropped into darkness. No other buildings visible, no signs of civilization. Just the hall and the wilderness, and the sense that anything could happen here and the world would never know. Vivian's taxi driver refused to go past the gates. "This is as far as I take passengers, miss. Place gives me the creeps, always has." She paid him, grabbed her medical bag, walked through gates that opened silently as she approached. Motion sensors, cameras, someone was watching. The entrance hall was exactly what she expected. Marble floors, portraits of pale aristocrats in centuries-old clothing, chandeliers that held real candles, the smell of old money and older secrets. A woman waited at the foot of a sweeping staircase, 70 years old, maybe 80. Silver hair pulled back so tightly it stretched her skin. She wore black, formal, like a uniform. "Dr. Ashford, punctual. I'm Isolde Graves, head of household. Lord Thornfield is expecting you." Her accent was crisp, British, upper class. "Your quarters are prepared. The medical facilities are on the 3rd floor. Lord Thornfield doesn't receive visitors after midnight, particularly human visitors. Do you understand?" Vivian met her gaze without flinching. "I understand that I'm here to provide medical consultation, nothing more." A thin smile crossed Isolde's face. Approval or warning, Vivian couldn't tell. "This way." They climbed stairs, walked corridors lined with portraits and weapons and artifacts that looked like they belonged in museums. Vivian kept her expression neutral, professional, but her cardiac surgeon's eye noticed details. No dust. Everything maintained with obsessive precision. The kind of care that required either massive staff or inhuman dedication. Her room was on the 3rd floor, east wing, stone walls, a 4-poster bed that looked medieval, a window that overlooked darkness. Isolde placed her medical bag on an antique desk. "The winter gala begins at 11 tomorrow evening. Elite guests. Your presence will be required at the medical station. Standard precaution for events of this nature. Lord Thornfield insists on having a physician available. Too many of our guests have. Specific dietary requirements that occasionally cause complications. Vivian unpacked her bag, carefully, methodically, hiding the shake in her hands. "I'll be ready. Will there be children present?" Isolde paused at the door. When she turned back, her expression was unreadable. "Lord Thornfield's daughter will make a brief appearance. The child is delicate. She doesn't speak. Hasn't spoken in 3 years. Traumatic birth, the doctors say. Severe selective mutism. Lord Thornfield has tried everything. Specialists, therapies. Nothing works. The child simply doesn't speak. 3 years. Selective mutism. Traumatic birth." Vivian's hand stopped shaking, became perfectly still, the way they used to in the operating room when she was about to make an incision that couldn't afford tremor. "I'd like to examine her, if Lord Thornfield permits. Selective mutism can sometimes have neurological causes. I might be able to help." Isolde studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll inform Lord Thornfield of your offer. Get rest, Dr. Ashford. Tomorrow will be demanding." She left. The door closed with a sound like a tomb sealing. Vivian sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap, breathing slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The technique she'd used before every surgery. Her daughter was here, in this building, alive, not speaking, for 3 years. The same 3 years Vivian had mourned her death. Tomorrow night she would see her, would know for certain, and if it was true, if they had stolen her child. Then Dr. Vivian Ashford would remind these people that the hands of a cardiac surgeon know exactly where to cut to make a heart stop beating. She didn't sleep that night, just sat by the window, watching darkness, waiting for dawn that never fully came to the Scottish Highlands in November. Planning, calculating, preparing for the moment when 3 years of grief would either be justified or revealed as delusion. Either way, by midnight tomorrow she would have answers, even if she had to carve them from living flesh. The winter gala at Thornfield Hall wasn't a party. It was a gathering of predators in formal wear. Vivian stood at her medical station, a small alcove off the main hall, equipped with emergency supplies, cardiac monitors, medications, everything a physician might need if a guest collapsed. But the guests at this gala didn't collapse. They moved with inhuman grace, spoke in voices that carried centuries, wore jewelry worth more than Vivian's former house. She'd been to fundraisers at Massachusetts General, met millionaires and philanthropists. These people were different. Old money didn't capture it. They wore age like other people wore cologne. You could smell it on them. The main hall was a cathedral of wealth. Marble floors reflected chandelier light. Walls displayed paintings Vivian recognized from art history textbooks. A Rembrandt, a Caravaggio. Originals, not reproductions. The kind of artwork that lived in museums behind bulletproof glass. She counted approximately 200 guests, all impeccably dressed. Men in tailored suits that probably cost more than her medical school tuition. Women in gowns that looked like they'd been sewn by hands dead for a century. They sipped from crystal glasses. The liquid was dark, red. Wine, she told herself. Just very dark wine. Conversation hummed, low, controlled. She caught fragments as guests passed her station. The Genentech Consortium secured another $60 million in venture funding. Dr. Wolf's research division is expanding. $60 million for what? Pharmaceuticals? Regenerative medicine? Genetic therapies? The future, they say. $60 million, Dr. Wolf. The name made Vivian's blood freeze. Same man, same cold hands, same voice like honey over ice. He was part of this, whatever this was. At exactly 11:30, the hall went quiet. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Every head turned toward the grand staircase. A man descended, and Vivian understood why the room held its breath. He was tall, 6'4" at least, maybe 6'6", silver hair pulled back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble by an artist who understood suffering. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, but it was his eyes that made Vivian's medical training scream warnings. Silver blue, inhuman, ancient. They swept the room with the casual authority of someone who'd ruled for longer than countries had existed. He wore a black suit, simple, perfectly tailored. No jewelry except a ring on his right hand, silver, set with a stone that looked like frozen blood. When he moved, the crowd parted. Not dramatically, not obviously, just shifted. Like water flowing around stone. Lord Alaric Thornfield, 612 years old. If the rumors Isolde had mentioned were true, looking exactly 35. If you didn't count the eyes, he took a position at the head of the hall. Didn't speak, didn't need to. His presence was speech enough. Then, following 10 paces behind, a nursemaid appeared, pushing a wheelchair. Vivian's world stopped. The child in the wheelchair had moonlight hair, pale blonde, falling in waves around a face that Vivian saw every time she looked in a mirror. 3 years old, small, too small for 3.5, wearing a white dress that made her look like a ghost. She didn't look at the crowd, didn't react to the hundreds of eyes watching her, just sat with her hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing. Seraphina Thornfield, the silent heir, Vivian's daughter. She knew, the way mothers know, the certainty that lives below thought, below reason. In the place where blood speaks to blood and cells recognize cells. That child, that beautiful, silent, broken-looking child was hers. The nursemaid wheeled Seraphina to a spot near Lord Thornfield. The child sat motionless, a doll in a chair, no expression, no movement, just present like a piece of furniture. Vivian gripped the edge of her medical station. Her cardiac training took over. Detachment, observation, study the patient from a distance before approaching. Note the symptoms. The signs. Seraphina's posture was wrong. Not cerebral palsy, not muscular dystrophy. The muscle tone was fine, but she sat too still, the kind of stillness that came from training, or sedation. Vivian knew the signs. She'd seen them in patients recovering from anesthesia. The child was being drugged. Medical records had said traumatic birth, selective mutism, psychological. But Vivian saw neurological suppression, chemical, deliberate. Someone was keeping this child quiet, compliant, silent. Rage flooded through Vivian's veins like poison. She forced it down, controlled her breathing. Cardiac surgeons don't operate angry. Anger makes hands shake, makes incisions imprecise. She needed steady hands for what came next. The gala proceeded. Guests mingled, ate from silver platters, drank from crystal glasses. Vivian waited, watched, noted which guests approached Lord Thornfield with deference, which ones he acknowledged with brief nods, which ones he ignored completely. Power dynamics, clear as anatomy. He was the heart of this gathering. Everyone else was just circulation. At 11:55, Lord Thornfield made a small gesture. The nursemaid approached. He leaned down, spoke quietly to Seraphina. The child didn't respond, didn't look at him, just existed. Thornfield's expression was stone, but Vivian saw the crack, brief, barely there, pain, loss, helplessness. The look of a parent watching their child drift further away and not knowing how to reach them. He straightened, turned to leave. And Vivian made her decision. She stepped out from her medical station, walked across the marble floor, heels clicking. Every eye in the hall tracked her movement, the human physician, crossing toward the vampire king and his daughter. Audacious, possibly suicidal, she reached the wheelchair, knelt. Professional smile, calm voice. "Excuse me, I'm Dr. Ashford, the visiting cardiac specialist. I was wondering if I might do a quick examination. Standard precaution. Make sure her heart rate and breathing are normal, given the crowd and noise." The nursemaid looked uncertain, glanced toward Lord Thornfield. He'd stopped, turned. Those silver blue eyes locked onto Vivian with an intensity that felt like X-rays. "You're the physician Isolde hired, from Boston." His voice was deep, accented, British but old. The kind of accent that predated modern Britain. It resonated in Vivian's chest, made her heartbeat stutter. "Yes, I offered to examine your daughter. I have experience with selective mutism cases. Sometimes there are underlying cardiac or neurological factors that get missed. Specialists have examined her, the finest in Europe." "I'm sure they have, but I'm here, and it takes 30 seconds to check her vitals, if you'll permit." Silence. The entire hall had gone quiet. Watching. Waiting. A human woman, asking permission to touch the heir to House Thornfield. Bold, stupid, or desperate. Thornfield studied Vivian for 5 seconds that felt like hours, then nodded once. 30 seconds. Vivian turned to Serafina, pulled her stethoscope from her pocket, warmed the chest piece in her palm, approached slowly, telegraphing every movement. She'd learned this with pediatric patients. Move slow, speak soft, let them see you're not a threat. "Hello, sweetheart, I'm Dr. Vivian. I'm just going to listen to your heartbeat. It won't hurt, I promise." No response. The child's eyes remained unfocused, staring at the middle distance. Vivian placed the stethoscope against Serafina's chest, over her heart, and froze. The heartbeat was wrong, not diseased, not damaged, but altered. A rhythm Vivian had heard only once before. 3 years ago, when she'd placed her hand on her pregnant belly and felt 2 hearts beating. One her own, one belonging to the daughter she'd carried. This was that rhythm, unique, unmistakable, a hybrid cadence that lived between human and something else. Vivian's hand trembled. She looked at Serafina's face, really looked, past the drug stillness, past the blank expression, into eyes that were twilight, purple-blue. The exact shade Vivian's own eyes had been as a child before they darkened to gray-green. And in that moment, Serafina's eyes focused, locked onto Vivian's face. Recognition flooded them. Absolute, certain, impossible. The child's mouth opened. For 3 years, Serafina Thornfield had been silent. Doctors had failed. Therapists had failed. Her father had begged and pleaded and offered fortunes to anyone who could make her speak. But now, looking at Vivian, hearing Vivian's voice, feeling the warmth of a hand that had once rested on the womb where she'd grown, Serafina spoke one word, barely a whisper, but clear as crystal in the dead silence of the hall. "Mama." The word detonated like a grenade. Every conversation stopped. Every glass stilled. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward the wheelchair, toward the child who'd just spoken, toward the human woman kneeling before her with tears streaming down her face. Serafina's hand lifted, small, trembling, reached toward Vivian. Mama." The second word came louder, stronger, 3 years of silence breaking like a dam. The child's face crumpled. Tears spilled, not slow, a flood. Years of grief and loneliness and being trapped in drug silence erupting all at once. "Mama, Mama, up, please, Mama." Vivian didn't think. Instinct took over. She gathered Serafina into her arms, lifted her from the wheelchair. The child was too light, malnourished. 3 years old should weigh more. But she wrapped her arms around Vivian's neck with desperate strength, buried her face in Vivian's shoulder, sobbed. "Mama came, Mama came. I waited, Mama came." The hall erupted, voices overlapping, shock, confusion, alarm. But Vivian heard none of it. She felt only the weight of her daughter in her arms. The heartbeat against her chest, the small hands clutching her jacket. 3 years, 1,095 days, and finally, her child was in her arms. Then a hand clamped onto her shoulder, iron, inescapable. Lord Alaric Thornfield's voice was a blade. "Put her down." Vivian looked up into eyes that had gone from silver blue to pure black. Rage, centuries of it, controlled, but barely. Commander Roderick Stone materialized beside him. Military bearing, hand on his weapon. 8 more guards appeared from the shadows, surrounding Vivian, blocking every exit. I said, "Put her down." Serafina's arms tightened around Vivian's neck. "No, don't hurt Mama. Please, don't hurt Mama." The child's voice, speaking in full sentences for the first time. Begging for Vivian's life. It shattered something in the hall, the absolute certainty, the impossible connection. Thornfield's expression didn't change, but his hand moved from Vivian's shoulder to grip her arm. Not crushing, but inescapable. "Commander Stone, escort Dr. Ashford to the holding room, gently. The child is distressed. We'll sort this out, away from the guests." Vivian had 2 choices: fight and probably die while traumatizing Serafina further, or submit. Let them take her. Trust that a mother's rights meant something even in this impossible place. She kissed Serafina's forehead, whispered against her hair. "I have to go with them, sweetheart, but I'm not leaving. I promise. I'm not leaving you again. Mama. No, Mama, stay. I'll be close. I promise. You're safe. I found you. That's all that matters." She handed Serafina back to the nursemaid. The child screamed, raw, wordless. Then words, pouring out like a river breaking through ice. "Mama, Mama, come back. Don't leave. Please don't leave. Mama, Mama." The screams followed Vivian as Commander Stone and 4 guards escorted her from the hall, down corridors, down stairs, to a room that was stone walls and heavy doors and the smell of old dungeons dressed up as modern holding cells. They left her there, locked, alone, with Serafina's screams echoing in her ears and the weight of her daughter's body still imprinted on her chest. Vivian sat on the single chair, placed her hand over her heart, felt it beating, wild, terrified, victorious. She'd found her daughter. After 3 years, after being told she was dead, after believing the lie, Serafina was alive. And she'd spoken, called Vivian Mama, remembered somehow, against all odds and all logic. Now came the hard part, proving it. To a 612-year-old vampire king who believed his child had been born to a wife who died 3 years ago. Vivian closed her eyes, controlled her breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, the way she used to before difficult surgeries. When the door opened again, when they came to question her, she would be ready, because Dr. Vivian Ashford had just heard her daughter's first words, and nothing in heaven or hell would make her walk away now. The holding room had no windows, just stone walls that remembered centuries. A single electric bulb cast shadows that didn't quite reach the corners. Vivian sat on a wooden chair, hands folded, breathing controlled. Above her, muffled through layers of stone and time, Serafina's screams had finally faded to silence. That silence was worse than the screaming. 20 minutes passed. Then the door opened. Not violently, just opened, as if locks and barriers meant nothing to the man who entered. Lord Alaric Thornfield filled the doorway. He'd removed his jacket, rolled his sleeves to the elbow. His forearms bore scars, old ones, faded white lines that looked like shrapnel wounds, battle damage from wars Vivian had only read about in history books. He closed the door, didn't sit, just stood, looking at her with eyes that had watched empires rise and fall. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled, too controlled, the kind of calm that lived one breath away from violence. "My daughter has never spoken, not once, not to physicians who've served this house for 200 years, not to me. 3 years of silence, absolute silence." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "Then you touch her, and she speaks, calls you mother, begs me not to hurt you." His jaw tightened. "Explain, now, before I stop being patient." Vivian met his gaze, steady, the way she used to hold eye contact with families when delivering bad news after surgery. Truth required eye contact. 3 years ago, I signed a surrogacy contract. Wolf Medical Institute in Boston, Dr. Matthias Wolf. I was told the child died at birth, congenital heart defect. They drugged me. I woke 3 days later with a check and a death certificate. She pulled a folder from inside her jacket. Commander Stone had searched her, but he'd left the medical documents. Probably figured papers weren't weapons. He was wrong. Birth records, surrogacy contract, blood work from the pregnancy, ultrasound images. She slid them across the small table between them. I carried a child for 6 months, heard her cry at birth, then was told she died. For 3 years, I believed that lie. Alaric picked up the documents, scanned them with eyes that could probably read in darkness. His expression didn't change, but his hands tightened on the papers just slightly. Enough. The child I raised, Serafina. Her mother was Morgana Thornfield, my wife. She died in childbirth 3 years ago. Dr. Wolf attended the birth, presented me with a daughter and a corpse. Did you see your wife pregnant? The question hung in the air like a blade. Alaric's eyes narrowed. Morgana was private about her condition. She sequestered herself for the final months, said the pregnancy made her vulnerable. Wolf assured me everything was progressing normally. And you never questioned it. I am 612 years old, Dr. Ashford. I have survived wars, plagues, assassinations, and political machinations that would make your modern governments look like children playing house. But I trusted my physician, my wife's physician, a man who has served House Thornfield for 240 years. His voice dropped to something dangerous. If you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, I'm suggesting that Dr. Wolf lied to both of us, took genetic material from you, used it to create an embryo, implanted it in me, let me carry your daughter, then stole her at birth and presented her to you as your wife's child. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples of implication spreading. Alaric set the documents down, carefully, precisely, the movement of someone controlling rage through ritual. If this is true, if Serafina is genetically mine but gestated in you, that would make her half human, half vampire, a hybrid. Impossible. Hybrid pregnancies don't survive. The genetic incompatibility, the rejection, it's why true vampire bloodlines are so rare, why we've been slowly dying out for centuries. Vivian leaned forward. Physician mode, explaining complex biology to someone who needed to understand. Unless someone solved the compatibility problem, unless Dr. Wolf has been researching hybrid genetics for years, decades, trying to create what nature couldn't. And he succeeded, with your DNA and mine. Alaric's hands were shaking now, barely perceptible. But Vivian had spent years reading tremors. These were fury and fear in equal measure. Why? Why would Edmund do this? I don't know, but your guest tonight mentioned Genetech Consortium. 60 million in funding for Dr. Wolf's research division, regenerative medicine, genetic therapies. She paused. Let the implication settle. What if Serafina isn't just your daughter? What if she's a prototype, living proof that hybrid genetics work? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Frost crept across the stone walls. Alaric's eyes had gone pure black. When he spoke, his voice carried centuries of controlled violence. If Edmund Wolf has been using my daughter as a laboratory specimen, if he's been harvesting her genetic material, selling it. He stopped, breathing, controlling. I will make the psalm look like a garden party. Vivian's medical instincts kicked in. She'd seen trauma before. PTSD, battle damage that never healed. The way Alaric said, the psalm carried weight, personal weight. You were there, 1916, 1915 to 1918. I couldn't stop the war, but I could save soldiers. Pulled them from no man's land. Fixed wounds that should have killed them. Watched them go back to die anyway. His focus returned to Vivian, sharp, present. Then I came home, swore I'd never fail to protect those under my care again, and now you're telling me I've been failing my daughter for 3 years. You didn't know. I should have known. I'm her father. And I'm her mother. I didn't know either. We were both deceived. The word mother hung between them, challenging, claiming. Alaric studied her, really looked. Not at her medical credentials or her documents, at her, the set of her jaw, the steadiness of her hands, the way she sat like someone ready to fight even though fighting would be suicide. You jumped into this without knowing what you'd find, came to a vampire stronghold, alone, armed with nothing but medical training and conviction. Why? Because she's my daughter. You signed a contract, gave up all parental rights. Contracts are void when signed under false pretenses. They told me she was dead. That voids everything. A sound that might have been a laugh escaped Alaric. Bitter, tired. You argue like a lawyer, fight like a soldier, and mother-like. Like someone who'd burn the world to protect their child. Wouldn't you? I already have. Twice. Once in the Great War, once in the Second. Both times trying to save children who weren't mine. Now I have one who is, and I don't know how to help her. Vivian stood, slowly, hands visible, non-threatening, moved to the table where her documents lay. Then let me help. I'm a cardiac surgeon. I know biology, genetics, neurology. If Wolf has been suppressing Serafina's development, drugging her, I can prove it. I can fix it. Why should I trust you? Because 3 minutes ago your daughter spoke for the first time. To me. That's not magic, that's not manipulation, that's biology. Blood recognizing blood. Mother recognizing child. You want proof? Test our DNA. Ancient magic. Modern science. Use both, but do it fast. Because if Wolf realizes Serafina spoke, if he knows his secret is compromised. She didn't need to finish. Alaric understood threat assessment, had been doing it for 6 centuries. He'll run, or eliminate the evidence. Evidence being Serafina. The words made the room colder. Alaric's expression went from controlled rage to something older, darker, the look of a predator deciding whether to kill quickly or slowly. Then he moved, faster than Vivian could track, one moment across the room, the next standing inches from her, close enough that she could see the scars on his neck, silver lines. Like something had tried to decapitate him and failed. If you're lying, if this is some elaborate scheme, I will make your death last decades. Vivian didn't flinch. Cardiac surgeons don't flinch. Steady hands, steady voice. If I'm lying, I deserve it, but I'm not. And every second we waste arguing is a second Serafina is in danger. Alaric stared at her for 5 seconds that felt like surgery, then stepped back, turned to the door, opened it with a gesture. No key, no lock, just will. Commander Stone, summon the court seer. Prepare the oath chamber. We're performing a blood binding. He looked back at Vivian. You want proof? You'll get it. But the ritual is ancient, painful. It will strip away lies, even the ones you've told yourself. If you're wrong about any of this, if Serafina isn't yours, the magic will kill you, slowly. Are you willing to risk that? Vivian thought about 3 years of phantom aches, of waking with her hand on her empty stomach, of hearing a baby's cry in her dreams. Yes? Then follow me and pray to whatever gods you believe in, because if the magic rejects you, your gods won't save you. The oath chamber existed below the dungeons, below the wine cellars, below the foundations of Thornfield Hall, cut from bedrock that predated the building by millennia. The walls were black stone, smooth, carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. They moved, shifted, like living things pressed into rock. Vivian descended stone steps worn smooth by centuries of feet. Alaric ahead of her, Commander Stone behind, 2 guards flanking. The temperature dropped with each step. Not cold, absence, like they were descending into a place where heat simply didn't exist. Commander Roderick Stone walked with military precision, each footfall measured, controlled. Vivian noticed the way he moved, the subtle favoring of his left side, Old injury. Very old. He caught her looking. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition. Of someone who understood wounds that never fully healed. Dr. Ashford. His voice was gravel and smoke. British accent, but not modern. Wartime. You're observant? Medical training? 12 years as a cardiac surgeon. I read bodies. You're favoring your left ribs, third and fourth. Shrapnel damage, decades old. Healed wrong. Stone's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but close. 1944, June 6th, Normandy Beach. German 88mm shell. Caught 3 pieces. One lodged near my heart. Should have died. Would have. If Lord Thornfield hadn't found me. Vivian's medical mind cataloged the information. 80 years ago. Stone should be in his 90s. Early hundreds. But he moved like a man in his 40s. Vampire. Turned on a battlefield. He saved you. Gave me a choice. Die in the sand. Or serve him. Forever. I chose service. Stone's hand moved unconsciously to his ribs. The shrapnel's still there, too close to the heart to remove, even with vampire healing. I've carried it for 80 years, a reminder. Of what? That I jumped out of a landing craft into machine gun fire. Didn't know if I'd survive. Didn't matter. The mission was bigger than fear. He looked at her. Really looked. You jumped into this. Came to a vampire fortress. Alone, for your daughter. That's the same courage. Different battlefield. Vivian felt something shift. Stone wasn't just a soldier. He was someone who understood, who'd made impossible choices, who'd survived by leaping into darkness. Thank you, Commander. Roderick and Dr. Ashford. When the ritual starts, when the magic tears through you, remember, you've already survived the hardest part. You walked through those gates. Everything after is just falling. And I'll make damn sure you land safe. The words settled something in Vivian's chest. An ally. In a place where allies seemed impossible. They reached the chamber floor. Stone positioned himself by the door. Guardian, protector. His hand rested on his weapon, but his eyes held understanding. The chamber was circular, 20 feet across. The floor bore a pattern of silver inlaid into stone. 3 circles, interconnected. Ancient geometry that Vivian's medical training said was impossible. Lines that curved in ways that defied Euclidean space. In the center stood a stone altar, black, slick, stained with centuries of use. And beside it a figure draped in robes the color of moonlight. The court seer. She was old. Impossibly old. Her face a map of wrinkles that could have been age or could have been scars. Her eyes were white, filmed over, blind, but when she turned toward Vivian, those eyes saw. Deeper than sight. Into blood and bone and the secrets written in genetic code. The mother who doesn't know she's a mother. The king who doesn't know he's a father. The child who knows both. Her voice was wind through dead trees. Finally, the triangle completes. Alaric moved to one of the silver circles, stood in its center. Dr. Ashford, the left circle, Commander, bring Serafina. My lord, the child has never undergone the binding, the trauma. The child spoke tonight, for the first time, to this woman. I need to know why. Bring her. Gently. Stone left, returned 3 minutes later carrying Serafina. The child was wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes were heavy, drugged again. Someone had sedated her after the outburst, trying to return her to compliant silence. But when she saw Vivian, Serafina's eyes cleared. Focus returned. She reached out. Mama, Mama's here. The words were slurred, fighting through pharmaceutical fog, but clear, undeniable. Vivian stepped into her circle without being told. Serafina tried to squirm from Stone's arms. The commander looked at Alaric. Alaric nodded. Stone set the child down. Serafina ran, stumbling, drugged, but determined. Crossed the stone floor and wrapped her arms around Vivian's legs. Mama, stay now. Promise. Mama, stay. Vivian knelt, gathered her daughter. 3 years of separation, 3 years of lies. ending in a moment of contact that felt like the world realigning. "I promise, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere." The seer approached, moved between the three circles. When she spoke, her voice echoed, multiplied, as if the chamber itself was speaking through her. The binding of three, blood calls to blood, truth burns away lies. Those who enter the circles with deception die in the circles with truth. Lord Thornfield, do you consent? I consent. Dr. Ashford, do you consent? Vivian looked at Seraphina, the child watching her with twilight eyes. Trusting. Absolute. The way children trust mothers. I consent. Then let the binding begin. The seer produced a blade. Silver. Etched with symbols that moved. She approached Alaric first. He extended his hand without hesitation. She cut his palm. Deep. Blood welled. Dark. Almost black. It dripped into a silver bowl she held. 3 drops. Then the wound closed, healing in seconds. Vampire regeneration. Next she approached Vivian. The blade gleamed. This will hurt. I'm a surgeon. I've cut myself before. The seer's blind eyes almost smiled. Then she drew the blade across Vivian's palm. Pain flared. Sharp. Clean. Blood flowed. Red. Human. Vivian clenched her jaw. Let 3 drops fall into the bowl. The seer moved on. The wound kept bleeding. No vampire healing for humans. Vivian pressed her other hand over it, applied pressure. Basic first aid. The seer knelt before Seraphina, spoke softly. Little one, this will hurt, but only for a moment. Can you be brave? Seraphina looked at Vivian. Vivian nodded. The child extended her tiny hand, palm up, trusting. The seer's blade barely touched, just pricked the skin. But the blood that welled was wrong. Not red, not black. Something between. Purple, iridescent. Like oil reflecting light, hybrid blood. 3 drops fell into the bowl, and the moment they touched the mixture of Alaric's and Vivian's blood, the chamber screamed. Light erupted, blinding, golden, ancient. The silver circles blazed. Lines of force shot from the bowl to each of them, connecting, binding. Vivian felt it slam into her chest, not physical, deeper, genetic. The magic was reading her DNA, comparing it to the blood in the bowl, searching for truth. The pain was extraordinary, like every cell in her body was being torn apart and examined. She felt the magic probe her memories, the pregnancy, the birth, the phantom aches. It ripped through 3 years of grief and found the biological truth underneath. This child, Seraphina, had grown in Vivian's womb, had been fed by Vivian's blood, had been born from Vivian's body. The magic confirmed it, sealed it, made it truth that couldn't be denied. The light intensified. Vivian screamed. She couldn't help it. The magic was burning away lies, but also burning, period. She felt like she was on fire from the inside out. Then, hands, small, cool. Seraphina had crossed the space between circles, wrapped her arms around Vivian, and where the child touched her. The pain stopped, the hybrid blood, the bridge between human and vampire, recognized both, soothed both. Mama's okay. Sarah's here. Mama's okay. The light faded. The chamber fell silent. Vivian collapsed to her knees, gasping, alive. The binding hadn't rejected her, hadn't killed her, because she'd told the truth. The seer's voice cut through the ringing in Vivian's ears. The blood does not lie. This woman bore the child. She is the mother, bound by flesh and magic and the truth that lives in marrow. Alaric stood frozen in his circle, staring at Vivian and Seraphina, the child clinging to the woman, both of them glowing faintly, the residual magic highlighting the biological connection. His voice was hollow. How? The seer turned to him, blind eyes seeing everything. The child was conceived with your seed, grown in her womb, stolen at birth, presented to you as another's. Someone orchestrated this, someone with access to your genetic material, your trust, your household. Wolf, the physician knows more than he has spoken. Question him before he runs or strikes. Alaric's expression was stone, but his hands were shaking. He looked at Serafina, really looked, seeing her now as not just his heir, but as something created through deception, a daughter born from a woman he'd never met, raised on lies. "Sarah," he said quietly, "come here." Serafina looked at Vivian. Vivian nodded. The child walked to Alaric, slowly. He knelt, brought himself to her eye level. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be brave. Can you do that?" Serafina nodded. "Has Dr. Wolf, has he hurt you? Taken your blood? Done things that scared you?" The child's eyes filled with tears. She nodded, lifted her sleeve, showed her arm. Needle marks, dozens of them, weeks of them, hidden under long sleeves and sedation and silence. Alaric's face went absolutely blank, the kind of blank that came before execution. When he spoke, his voice was barely human. "Commander Stone, find Edmund Wolf. Bring him to me, alive. I want him conscious for what comes next." Stone saluted, left at a run. Alaric stood, looked at Vivian. "Dr. Ashford, you're a surgeon. I need you to examine Serafina. Tell me what he's done to her, every detail. Can you do that?" Vivian stood, still shaking from the binding, but steady. Surgeons work through pain. "I'll need a proper medical facility, equipment, blood analysis capabilities. 3rd floor, East Wing, medical suite with everything you'll need. Stone will show you." He paused. "And Dr. Ashford, thank you for not giving up, for finding her, for being what I couldn't be." "What's that?" "Present." The medical suite at Thornfield Hall rivaled Massachusetts General. Better equipment in some cases, CT scanner, MRI. Full hematology lab, genetic sequencer. Someone had invested millions in this room. Probably the same someone who'd been running experiments. Vivian worked for 3 hours, drew blood, ran tests, examined every inch of Serafina's small body while the child sat patiently, talking now, words pouring out like a river after a dam break. "Mama, I waited. I knew you'd come. In my dreams, I heard you. Singing. The lullaby, the one about stars." Vivian froze. She'd never told anyone about the lullaby, the one she'd sung while pregnant, late at night. Hand on her belly, a song her own mother had sung to her. "You remember that?" "Always. Even when the medicine made everything fuzzy, I remembered Mama's voice." Cellular memory. Genetic imprinting. The bond formed in utero, lasting beyond birth, beyond separation. Science barely understood it. But here it was, living proof. The test results came back. Vivian read them twice, then a 3rd time, because the implications were devastating. Serafina's blood contained traces of silentium-9, a compound Vivian had only read about in experimental neurology journals. It blocked neural pathways, specifically the ones controlling speech and voluntary movement. Used in research. Never approved for human trials, and definitely never approved for children. But worse than the silentium was the blood count. Serafina's hybrid stem cells were depleted, severely. Someone had been harvesting them, regularly, for years. Vivian did the math. Based on the depletion rate and regeneration capacity, Serafina had maybe 4 months, maybe less, before her body couldn't produce enough new blood cells to sustain life. She was dying, slowly, from medical vampirism disguised as treatment. When Alaric returned, Vivian handed him the results. Watched his face as he read, watched the centuries of control crack. He's been harvesting her stem cells, selling them, while keeping her sedated and silent so she couldn't tell anyone. Alaric's hands crumbled the paper, literally crushed it to dust. How long does she have? 4 months, maybe less, unless we stop the harvesting and give her body time to regenerate. But the neurological damage from the silencium, that might be permanent. I won't know until it clears her system. Can you clear it? I can try, but Alaric, if Wolf realizes what we know, if he feels cornered, he might. She didn't finish, didn't need to. Alaric understood threat assessment. He might eliminate the evidence, Serafina, or run, take his research, disappear. Then we move fast. I'm calling an emergency council session, tomorrow night. Every elder lord, public testimony. We expose this, all of it. They'll want proof. They'll have it. Medical records, test results, and something they can't deny. Serafina speaking, to you, her mother. The words still sounded strange, foreign, but also right. Vivian looked at Serafina. The child had fallen asleep on the examination table. Exhausted from 3 hours of testing, 3 years of silence ending. She looked peaceful, for the first time. Not drugged peace, real peace. What if the council doesn't believe us? What if they side with Wolf? Alaric's expression was granite. Then I'll remind them why I've ruled for 612 years, and it's not because I ask nicely. The council chamber was designed for intimidation, vaulted ceilings lost in shadow, a high table where 12 vampire lords sat in judgment, each one ancient, each one powerful, each one accustomed to ruling domains that spanned centuries. Vivian stood in the center of the chamber, Serafina beside her. Alaric at the head table, his position, his court. But Vivian felt like she was on trial. The 12 lords studied her with eyes that had watched civilizations rise and fall. Lord Casimir, 842 years old, oldest of the council, he spoke first, his voice like grinding stone. Lord Thornfield, you call an emergency session. Claim your physician has committed treason. These are serious accusations. They're facts, not accusations. Dr. Ashford, present the evidence. Vivian had spent the night preparing. Medical reports, test results, genetic analysis. She'd printed everything, made it simple, clear, undeniable. She handed documents to each council member. 3 years ago, Dr. Matthias Wolf used Lord Thornfield's genetic material without consent, combined it with mine, created an embryo, implanted it in me through a surrogacy program I entered, believing I was helping a noble family. She showed the contract, the payments, the timeline. I carried the child for 6 months, gave birth, was told the baby died, drugged, sent home with money and lies. Meanwhile, Dr. Wolf presented the same child to Lord Thornfield, claimed she was born to his wife, Morgana, who had recently died. The timing was perfect, the deception complete. Lord Pembroke, 670 years old, British aristocracy turned vampire. He studied the documents with cold precision. These are serious claims, but easily fabricated. How do we know you're not simply a human woman trying to insert herself into House Thornfield? Claim an heir that isn't yours? Serafina's small voice cut through the chamber. Because she's my mama, I know her, I remember. Every eye turned to the child. 3 years of silence, then this. Full sentences, clear, certain. Lord Casimir leaned forward. The child. She speaks. She does now, Alaric said, for the first time, to Dr. Ashford, the woman who bore her. Blood recognizes blood. The binding confirmed it. The binding can be manipulated. Not the ancient binding, not the oath of 3. It would have killed Dr. Ashford if she'd lied. Instead, he gestured. The residual glow from the binding still clung to Vivian and Serafina. Faint, but visible to vampire eyes. Instead, it confirmed the truth. Murmurs rippled through the council. Vivian pressed her advantage, pulled out the blood work. Serafina is hybrid, half human, half vampire. Her blood proves it. And someone has been harvesting her stem cells for years, depleting her, killing her, while keeping her sedated so she couldn't speak, couldn't tell anyone what was happening. She showed the injection sites. the Silencium-9 test results, the stem cell depletion charts. Dr. Wolf has been selling hybrid genetic material to Genentech Consortium. $60 million in funding, $4.2 million already collected. Serafina isn't his patient, she's his product. The council chamber went silent, the kind of silence that came before war. Lord Casimir's expression was stone, but his hands gripped the armrests of his chair. If this is true, if Edmund Wolf has been conducting unauthorized genetic experiments, harvesting a child's blood, deceiving Lord Thornfield, this is not just treason, this is abomination, Lord Pembroke finished. The child is hybrid. Human blood in a vampire heir. This violates bloodline law. She cannot inherit, cannot rule. The law is clear. Alaric stood. The movement was slow, controlled, terrifying. Then the law is wrong. Gasps, actual gasps, from vampires who thought they'd seen everything. My lord, Casimir said carefully, the bloodline law has stood for 3,000 years, since before Rome, since before Egypt. You cannot simply... I can. I will. Serafina is my daughter. Vivian is her mother. The binding proved it. Ancient magic proved it. If the law says my daughter is unworthy because she's half human, then the law is obsolete. Pembroke stood, fury in his ancient eyes. You would overturn millennia of tradition? For a human woman? For a hybrid child? Lord Thornfield, reconsider. This path leads to chaos. This path leads to truth, something we've apparently been avoiding for 3,000 years. Vivian watched the dynamic, saw the fractures. 5 of the 12 council members were nodding, considering. The others, rigid, opposed. This could go either way. Then Alaric did something Vivian never expected. He removed his crown, the silver circlet that marked him as king, set it on the table, stepped down from the high seat, and knelt. On the stone floor, before the council, before the assembly, before everyone. The chamber went silent, absolutely silent. Lord Casimir's voice was shocked. Lord Thornfield, what are you doing? Alaric's voice carried, strong, clear, steady. I have ruled for 612 years. Never have I bowed, never have I knelt. Not to enemies, not to allies, not to any being in this world or the next. He looked up, met each council member's eyes. But today I kneel, not as king, as father, as a man who was deceived, who raised a daughter on lies, who didn't know she was dying because I trusted the wrong person. He turned to Vivian, still kneeling. Dr. Vivian Ashford bore my child, suffered, grieved, searched. She came here with nothing but conviction and courage. She found the truth I was too blind to see. She earned my respect, my gratitude, my oath that I will protect her and our daughter with everything I am. He looked back at the council. I ask, not as king, but as father, grant her sanctuary. Grant her the right to help heal our daughter. Grant her the respect she's earned through suffering and sacrifice. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, Lord Casimir stood, looked at Alaric kneeling on cold stone, looked at Vivian standing with Serafina, looked at the evidence spread before them. In 842 years, I have never seen a vampire king kneel, never thought I would. He paused. But perhaps that is precisely why we should listen. He turned to the council. I move that Dr. Vivian Ashford be granted provisional sanctuary, 30 days, to prove she can heal the child. If Serafina survives, thrives. Then we revisit the bloodline law, consider modifications. For the first time in 3 millennia, Pembroke looked furious, but he was alone, one by one. The other council members nodded, voted, agreed. 10-2. Vivian was granted sanctuary. Alaric stood, replaced his crown, looked at Vivian. Something like a smile crossed his face, tired, grateful. Then Commander Stone burst into the chamber. His expression was grim. My lord, Dr. Wolf. He's gone. Apartment's empty, lab cleared. And he left this. He handed Alaric a sealed envelope. Thornfield crest. Mocking. Alaric opened it. Read. His expression went absolutely blank. "What does it say?" Vivian asked. Alaric's voice was hollow. "It says, I have the antidote, the compound to reverse the silentium and regenerate the stem cells. Meet me, Isle of Skye, the old lighthouse, midnight tomorrow, come alone, or Serafina dies in 26 days instead of 4 months." He looked at Vivian. "It's a trap." "Of course it's a trap, but we don't have a choice, do we?" Alaric studied her, really looked, saw the set of her jaw, the determination in her eyes, the absolute refusal to let her daughter die. He'd seen that look before, on soldiers in the Somme, right before they charged machine gun nests, knowing they'd probably die, doing it anyway. "No," he said quietly, "we don't have a choice. We go, together, and we end this." Vivian nodded, looked at Serafina, the child watching, understanding more than she should. "Mama has to go away, just for a little while, to get medicine, to make you better. I'll be brave, like Mama. I know you will, sweetheart." She kissed Serafina's forehead, handed her to Isolde, who had appeared silently at the chamber entrance. The old woman's face was drawn, haunted. Then Vivian turned to Alaric, cardiac surgeon and vampire king, mother and father, bound by blood and lies and a shared determination to destroy the man who'd torn their family apart before they knew they were family. "When do we leave?" "Dawn. 3 hours to prepare. Stone will outfit you with weapons, protection, everything you need. I'm a doctor, not a soldier. Doctors cut to heal, soldiers cut to kill. Tonight, you'll need to be both." Vivian thought about scalpels, about the precision required to stop a heart, about the thin line between surgery and murder. "Then teach me. I'm a fast learner." Alaric's expression was approval and something darker. "I believe you are, Dr. Ashford. I believe you are." Dawn came to the Scottish Highlands like a wound opening, gray light, cold. Vivian stood in the armory beneath Thornfield Hall while Commander Roderick Stone taught her how to kill. Scalpel technique translates to combat, precision over force. You know anatomy, use it. He handed her a blade. Carbon steel, 6 inches. Balanced for throwing or close work. Femoral artery, carotid, subclavian. You've seen the damage, now you cause it. Vivian tested the weight, lighter than a surgical scalpel, but the principle was the same. Find the target. Apply pressure, cut clean. Stone moved behind a practiced dummy, pointed. Vampire physiology, same vulnerabilities as humans, plus 3 more. Silver poisoning, decapitation, sunlight. Wolf is old, 240 years, he'll be fast, stronger than you. But he bleeds, remember that. I'm not a killer, Commander. You will be, before this is over. His expression was granite. Then it softened, just slightly. Dr. Ashford, in 1944, I jumped out of a landing craft into machine gun fire at Normandy, 20 years old, terrified. Didn't know if I'd survive the next 30 seconds. He pulled up his shirt, showed her the scars, 3 puckered marks near his heart. German 88 shell, 3 pieces of shrapnel. One lodged .2 millimeters from my left ventricle, too close to remove even with vampire healing. I've carried it for 80 years. Vivian's medical eye studied the scars, saw the precision of the near miss, how close he'd come to death. Lord Thornfield found you, dying in the sand, blood filling my lungs. He gave me a choice, die there, or serve him forever. I chose service, chose to keep fighting. Stone's eyes locked onto hers. That shrapnel, it's a reminder. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's jumping anyway. Into darkness, into bullets, into whatever hell waits. He placed the blade in her hand, closed her fingers around it. You're jumping today, into worse odds than I faced. But you'll jump anyway, because your daughter needs you to. That's real courage. And I'll make damn sure you land safe. That's my promise. Soldier to soldier. Vivian felt something shift. Stone understood. He'd made the same impossible choice. Leap into darkness, trust that somehow you'd survive. Thank you, Roderick. Now let's make sure you survive long enough to use it. For 2 hours, Stone drilled her. Knife work, pressure points, how to use medical knowledge as a weapon, inject air into a vein, induce cardiac arrest with precision strikes, severed tendons to disable without killing. The line between healing and harming was thinner than she'd realized. Alaric appeared at dawn's end. He wore combat gear, black tactical clothing, no crown, no formal wear. This was the soldier, the one who'd survived the Somme. He carried weapons that looked older than nations. A sword, silver-edged, runes etched into the blade. A pistol, modified, loaded with rounds that gleamed with chemical fire. Dr. Ashford, ready? She strapped the knife to her thigh, checked the medical kit Stone had modified. Scalpels, syringes, compounds that could heal or harm depending on application. Everything a field surgeon might need, everything a killer might want. As ready as I'll ever be. Good, because Isolde just intercepted a message. Wolf isn't at the lighthouse. He's at Castle Dunvegan, ancestral seat of Clan MacLeod. Abandoned for 60 years, he's turned it into a fortress. 18 mercenaries, human and vampire, all loyal to money. We're walking into a siege. Vivian's surgical training kicked in. Assess the situation, plan the approach, minimize casualties. How do we get past 18 armed guards? Alaric's smile was predatory. We don't avoid them. We use them. Stone, gather 10 of your best. We go in loud, fast, overwhelming force. While they're dealing with us, Dr. Ashford slips through, finds Wolf, gets the antidote. I'm bait. You're a surgeon on a mission. We're the scalpel. You're the hand that wields it. Stone nodded, approval in his scarred face. I'll take Alpha Team. Hit the main entrance. Draw fire. Give the doctor a window. What if I can't find Wolf? Alaric's expression was certain. You will. He wants to gloat, wants to prove he's smarter. He'll be waiting, in the most defensible position. Probably the old tower, top floor, commanding view, single entrance, classic tactical mistake. He thinks height equals safety. And if he's not there, then you improvise. You're a cardiac surgeon. You've handled emergencies before. This is just a different kind of operating room. The flight to Skye took 40 minutes. Private helicopter, military grade, Stone piloted. Vivian sat beside Alaric in the cargo bay. 10 vampire soldiers in tactical gear surrounded them, silent, professional. Each one a veteran of conflicts Vivian had only read about in history books. Below them, the Scottish landscape unfolded. Mountains, lochs, wilderness that hadn't changed in millennia. Castle Dunvegan appeared through morning mist, black stone, towers that clawed at gray sky. Built on a cliff overlooking the sea, defensible, isolated, perfect for someone who needed privacy. Alaric studied the approach through binoculars. 3 guards on the north wall, 4 on the east. Main entrance has a kill zone, 30 yards of open ground, overlapping fields of fire. He lowered the binoculars. They're expecting us. Wolf knows we'd come. Then why the charade? Why not just run? Because he needs something from us. Information, leverage. Maybe he thinks he can negotiate. Or maybe, Stone said from the pilot seat, he thinks he's already won. Arrogance. I've seen it before. Enemy commander gets too confident, stops respecting the threat, makes mistakes. The helicopter descended, landed a mile from the castle, hidden by terrain. Stone cut the engine. Silence flooded in. Alaric assembled his team with hand signals. Military precision. No words needed. They'd done this before, probably dozens of times over centuries. He turned to Vivian, handed her a radio, earpiece, throat mic. Stay on this frequency. We'll coordinate. When you hear the assault start, count to 30, then move. East wall. There's a drainage grate. Leads to the old cistern. From there, kitchen. Service stairs, tower. Questions? If I find Wolf, if I get the antidote, how do I signal? You don't. You run. Get clear of the castle. We'll cover your extraction. And if I can't run? Alaric's expression was stone. Then you fight. And you remember, Serafina needs you alive more than she needs Wolf dead. Survive first. Everything else is secondary. Vivian checked her gear, knife, medical kit, radio. The weight felt wrong. She was used to surgical gowns and sterile gloves, not tactical clothing and weapons. But 3 years of grief and 26 days of deadline had taught her. Adaptation wasn't optional. Let's end this. The assault began at 0900 hours, exactly as planned. Vivian crouched behind a stone outcrop, watching, waiting. The radio crackled. Stone's voice, calm, professional. Alpha team in position. Bravo, ready? Alaric, cold. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute. The world exploded. Gunfire, not modern, ancient, the kind that used silver bullets and blessed casings and rounds that could punch through vampire flesh. The main entrance lit up. Stone's team advancing, suppressing fire. Grenades, flashbangs. The castle defenders responded. Muzzle flashes from windows. Return fire. Vivian counted. 1, 2, 3. Her cardiac surgeon's precision. Steady, controlled. At 30, she moved. East wall, just like Alaric said. The drainage grate was rusted, old. She pulled. It came free with a screech of metal. The tunnel beyond was darkness, wet stone, the smell of stagnant water and centuries. She clicked on the tactical light Stone had given her, moved forward. Low, fast, medical training, field medicine during her residency. She'd crawled through disaster zones before. This was just older. The cistern was a chamber of black water and echoes. Stone stairs led up. She climbed, emerged in what had been a kitchen, centuries ago, now just ruins and rat droppings. The radio crackled. Contact, north wall. 4 hostiles down, pushing forward. Alaric's voice, strained, fighting. Vivian, status. Inside, moving to the tower. Good. Wolf just appeared on the battlements, watching the fight, smiling. Arrogant bastard thinks he's safe. Prove him wrong. Vivian moved through corridors, stone walls that remembered clan warfare and medieval sieges. The castle had been abandoned, but someone had been here recently. Fresh footprints in dust, electric lights, generators humming. She reached the tower stairs, spiral, narrow, defensible. Every step exposed her. If someone was waiting above, she'd be trapped. No cover, no escape. She climbed anyway, because Serafina had 26 days, and every second wasted was a second closer to death. The tower top was a circular chamber, windows overlooking the siege, and in the center, a laboratory, modern, sterile, completely out of place in medieval ruins. Dr. Matthias Wolf stood at a workbench, examining vials. He wore a white coat, pristine, like he was in a hospital, not a fortress under assault. When he turned, his smile was exactly as Vivian remembered, cold, calculating. Dr. Ashford, punctual. I appreciate that in a colleague. Vivian's hand moved to her knife. Wolf raised a finger. I wouldn't. You see the explosives? He gestured to devices placed around the room. Wired, professional. Dead man's switch. My heart stops. This tower becomes rubble. Along with you, me, and most importantly, this. He held up a vial, clear liquid, faintly iridescent. The antidote, synthesized from Serafina's own hybrid cells. Ironic, isn't it? The cure comes from the disease. She's not a disease, she's a child. She's a miracle, a proof of concept. Hybrid genetics work. I proved it. Do you know how many failures came before her? How many embryos rejected? How many surrogates died? His eyes gleamed. 47. 47 dead women. Then I found you. Perfect compatibility. Superior cardiovascular genetics. You were the key. Vivian's stomach turned. You killed 47 women, testing. Sacrifices, for science, for progress, for the cure to vampire genetic decay. He set the vial down, carefully. And it worked. Serafina is proof. Her blood regenerates tissue, reverses aging, cures weaknesses. The Genetech Consortium will pay billions, billions, for what flows in her veins. You're going to kill her, harvesting her blood. Eventually, yes, but not before I extract enough stem cells to synthesize the cure independently. Another year, maybe two, then, well, accidents happen. Wolf pulled a tablet from his coat, pressed a button. A screen flickered to life. But I'm not without insurance. You see, I always have a backup plan. The screen showed a photo. A woman, mid-20s, red hair, sharp features, medical coat, cold eyes that held no mercy. Dr. Miriam Cross, my niece, 27 years old, Johns Hopkins Medical School, top of her class, trained in field medicine and genetic research. She's been working with me for 5 years, learning, observing, waiting. He tapped the screen. Another image, Miriam holding a syringe, standing over a hospital bed. 47 women didn't all die from natural rejection. Some needed help to fail. Miriam provided that help. She's very skilled, very loyal, and very motivated. I promised her $50 million when Serafina's research concludes. Vivian's blood ran cold. You're telling me this why? Because Miriam is at Thornfield Hall right now, in Serafina's room, with a syringe containing a compound that will stop her heart in 30 seconds, painlessly. I'm not cruel, but thoroughly. He showed another image, live feed, Serafina sleeping, and in the shadows, a figure, red hair, waiting. If I don't check in every hour, Miriam acts. So, Dr. Ashford, what's it worth? Your daughter's life? Lord Thornfield's throne? Choose. Vivian's world narrowed. This was the moment, the decision. Save Serafina by sacrificing Alaric's kingdom, or refuse, and watch her daughter die. Then the radio crackled. Alaric's voice. Calm. Vivienne, I'm hearing this. The associate. Already neutralized. Isolde found her. 20 minutes ago. The video feed is looped. Pre-recorded. Serafina is safe. Wolf's expression flickered. Confusion, then rage. Impossible. She was supposed to... You forgot, Vivian said quietly. Isolde has been watching over Serafina for 3 years. You really thought she'd let a stranger near that child? Wolf's hand moved toward the dead man's switch. Vivian moved faster. Surgical precision. 3 years of tremors had taught her. Compensate. Adapt. Overcome. The knife left her hand, buried itself in Wolf's wrist, severing the radial artery. Not fatal, but disabling. He screamed, dropped the switch. Vivian crossed the distance, caught the switch before it hit the ground. Steady hands, surgeon's hands. She set it down, carefully, then turned to Wolf. He was clutching his wrist, blood streaming. You're just a human. You can't... I'm a cardiac surgeon. I know exactly where to cut, how deep, how fast you'll bleed out. You have 4 minutes before unconsciousness, 7 before brain damage, 10 before death. Your choice. Tell me how to synthesize the antidote, or die on this floor while I watch. Wolf's eyes widened. Fear, real fear. He'd spent 240 years believing humans were lesser, weaker, prey. Now one stood over him with a knife and medical knowledge and absolute cold certainty. The formula, it's in the vials, pre-made, enough for 6 doses, in the refrigeration unit. Code is 0916, my birth year. Vivian moved to the unit, punched in the code. The door opened. Inside, 6 vials, labeled, dated. She took them all, secured them in her medical kit. Then she returned to Wolf. He was pale, blood loss, shock. She knelt, examined the wound with professional detachment. Apply pressure, elevate. You'll survive, probably. You're going to help me? I'm a doctor. I don't let people die, even monsters. She pulled a tourniquet from her kit, wrapped his arm, tightened it. The bleeding slowed, stopped. But I'm also a mother, and you hurt my daughter. She stood, walked to the window. The radio crackled. Vivian, We've secured the castle. 18 hostiles down. No friendly casualties. Wolf? Alive. Neutralized. I have the antidote. Then get clear. North Tower. We'll extract by rope, unless you want to take the stairs. Vivian looked down. 3 stories. Sheer drop. The rope descent would be faster, but exposed. Then she heard it. A sound that made her blood freeze. A child's scream. Distant. Carried on the wind. From somewhere below. Serafina? Her hands moved to the window. Looked down. And saw. The old cistern, where she'd entered. A figure was climbing out, dragging something. No, someone. Small. Wrapped in a blanket. Sarah. Vivian's mind raced. The video was looped, but the associate had been neutralized. So who? There were 2, Wolf whispered behind her. Blood loss making him delirious, or honest. Always have a backup. Miriam was insurance. But my second apprentice, Dr. Helena Voss. She's supposed to bring Serafina here. Real leverage, you thought. You thought you'd won. The figure below moved toward the cliff edge, where the castle met the sea. A 200-foot drop, rocks, waves, certain death. Vivian's radio crackled. Alaric, urgent. I see her. North Cliff. I'm moving. But I'm 3 minutes out. Vivian. She didn't wait for the rest. Turned. Ran. Out of the tower. Down the stairs. Through corridors. Cardiac surgeons conditioning. She'd run marathons, maintained fitness even after retirement. But this was different. This was her daughter. About to be thrown off a cliff. She burst into the courtyard, saw the figure, closer now, mask removed, a woman, 30s, professional, cold, blonde hair, whipping in wind. She held Serafina like a sack. The child was struggling, screaming. Mama, Mama, help! The woman reached the cliff edge, turned, saw Vivian running, and smiled. Dr. Ashford, stop, or I drop her. Right now. Vivian stopped, 30 feet away, breathing hard. Don't, please. She's just a child. She's a paycheck. 50 million if I deliver her to Wolf's partners, dead or alive. Alive is preferable. But dead works too, so here's the deal. You back away, let me leave. Maybe I don't kill her. Maybe. Serafina's eyes locked onto Vivian's, terrified, trusting, certain her mother would fix this, the way mothers do. Vivian's mind calculated. Distance, wind speed, drop trajectory. If the woman released Serafina, the child would fall. 200 feet. Impact would be unsurvivable. Unless someone caught her mid-fall, used a grappling line, or Vivian's hand moved to her medical kit. The synthetic polymer rope Stone had included. Rated for 200 pounds. Strong enough. If she could anchor it, if she could time it, if she could jump. The woman saw the calculation, saw the decision forming. Don't be stupid. You're human. You jump. You die. Both of you. Maybe. But I'm also a mother, and mothers don't calculate odds. They just jump. The woman's expression flickered. Confusion, then understanding, then too late. She realized Vivian wasn't bluffing. Vivian ran. Full sprint. 30 feet in 4 seconds. The woman's hand opened. Serafina fell. And Vivian didn't hesitate. Didn't think. Didn't calculate survival probability. She jumped. Off the cliff, into 200 feet of empty air. After her daughter. The fall was everything. Wind, gravity, terror. Time stretched. Vivian saw Serafina below her, arms reaching, screaming. She tucked, streamlined, closed the distance. Cardiac surgeon's hands, steady, precise, caught Serafina midair, wrapped her body around the child, protected her, then pulled the grappling gun from her belt. Stone's backup plan, point, fire. The hook shot upward, caught on. Something. The line went taut. Their fall stopped, violently. Vivian felt her shoulder dislocate, ribs crack, collarbone snap. The pain was white, blinding. But her arms stayed locked around Serafina, protected, safe. They slammed into the cliff face, Vivian took the impact, felt vertebrae compress, something in her back give way. But Serafina was unharmed. Mama, you're hurt. I'm okay, baby. I'm okay. She wasn't. She was dying. Internal bleeding, spinal damage, punctured lung. She could feel it. The professional distance of self-diagnosis. 4 minutes until shock. 8 until unconsciousness. 12 until... Then warmth, spreading from where Serafina touched her, the child's hands, glowing, faint golden light, hybrid power, the ability to heal. Mama, don't leave, please, I can fix. And she could. Vivian felt it, bones knitting, tissue regenerating, the hybrid stem cells, the same ones Wolf had harvested, now used for their intended purpose. Healing, not harming. Within 2 minutes, the pain faded, the damage repaired. Vivian could breathe, move, function. She looked up. The cliff face stretched above them. 170 feet. The grappling line held, but climbing. With Serafina. Impossible. The radio crackled. Alaric. I see you. Holding position. 300 feet west. Rope descent incoming. 60 seconds. Vivian held Serafina, both of them dangling over death, but alive. Together. You saved me, Serafina whispered. You jumped. Always. I'll always jump for you. Even if it hurts? Especially if it hurts. That's what mothers do. Above them, a rope descended. Alaric rappelling down the cliff face with inhuman speed. He reached them, secured a harness around both, looked at Vivian with an expression she couldn't quite read. That was categorically insane. It worked. This time, next time, there won't be a next time, because you're going to end this, now. Alaric's expression went cold. The soldier, the one who'd survived the Somme by being more ruthless than the enemy. Already done. Stone has the woman. Wolf is in custody. The mercenaries are neutralized. It's over. He pulled them up, slow, controlled, at the top. Commander Stone waited, along with Isolde. The elderly woman's face was drawn, worried. The child. Is she... She's fine, Vivian said. She healed me, with her hybrid abilities. Isolde's expression crumbled. Relief, guilt, regret. I should have known, should have seen. 15 years I fed Wolf information. Never questioned. Never thought... You couldn't have known, Alaric said. He deceived everyone, but it ends today. He turned, walked toward the castle tower, where Wolf waited. Vivian followed, Serafina in her arms. Dr. Matthias Wolf knelt in the tower laboratory, hands bound, shoulder bandaged. Commander Stone had stabilized him, kept him alive. For this. Alaric entered, looked at the man who'd served House Thornfield for 240 years, who'd been trusted, valued, respected, who'd murdered 47 women, stolen a child, sold genetic material, planned to kill a 3-year-old for profit. Edmund, I gave you everything. Position, wealth, authority. Why? Wolf's laugh was bitter. Everything? You gave me table scraps. 240 years, watching you rule, watching you waste immortality on honor, on outdated codes, while I saw the future, genetic engineering, hybrid vigor, the cure to our decay, by killing children, by sacrificing the few for the many. How many vampires are dying? How many bloodlines ending? I could have saved them, all of them, with Serafina's blood. She's 3 years old. She's a resource, a means to an end. You're too sentimental to see it. Always have been. It's why you'll fail, why House Thornfield will fall, because you care more about individuals than the species. Alaric was silent for a long moment. Then he picked up one of the vials, the antidote, examined it. This is synthesized from Serafina's stem cells. You said it reverses the silentium, regenerates depleted blood, cures what you've done. Yes. And it's stable? Won't reject? Won't cause adverse reactions? I've tested it thoroughly. On subjects. Human subjects without consent. More murders. Wolf said nothing. Alaric handed the vial to Vivian. Test it. Use your medical expertise. Confirm it's safe. If it is, administer it to Serafina. Cure her. Vivian took the vial, examined it, drew a small sample, ran it through the portable analyzer in her kit. The chemistry was elegant, brilliant, monstrous in its perfection, but sound. It's legitimate. This will work. Then use it. Save our daughter. She drew the dose, looked at Serafina. This might sting, but it'll make you better. Make the bad medicine go away, okay? Serafina nodded. Brave, trusting. Vivian injected. The compound entered Serafina's bloodstream. For 30 seconds, nothing. Then, the child gasped. Her eyes widened. Color flooded her cheeks. The depletion, the suppression, reversing, healing. I can think. Clear. The fog. It's gone. Vivian ran a quick blood test. The silentium-9 was breaking down. The stem cells were regenerating. Within hours. Full recovery. Within days. Complete restoration. It worked. She's cured. Alaric nodded, then turned back to Wolf, picked up another vial, the same antidote. You wanted to cure vampire decay, reverse aging, eliminate weakness. He opened the vial. Let's test your theory. Wolf's eyes widened. What are you? This compound, synthesized from hybrid stem cells. You said it cures genetic damage, reverses degradation. Let's see if it works on you. No, the concentration. It's designed for children, for Serafina's weight and metabolism. An adult dose would... Alaric grabbed Wolf's jaw, forced it open, poured the vial down his throat, all of it. Would what? Edmund? Cure you? Or kill you? Wolf choked, swallowed. For 5 seconds. Nothing. Then, screaming, his body convulsed, the hybrid cells, designed to integrate with Serafina's half-human, half-vampire biology, encountering pure vampire physiology. Rejection. Catastrophic. Cellular. Wolf's skin began to crack. Fissures of light. Golden. Burning. The human DNA in the compound was attacking vampire cells, trying to convert them, overwriting genetic code that had been stable for 240 years. It hurts. Make it stop. You gave this to 47 women. Experimental compounds, untested. They screamed too, begged you to stop, did you? Please, I was trying to help, to save. You were trying to profit from suffering, from stolen children, from murdered mothers. Wolf's body was aging, fast. The compound reversing vampire immortality, 240 years compressed into minutes. His hair went white, skin withered, bones became brittle. This isn't justice. This is murder. Alaric's voice was ice. No, this is poetry. You die by your own creation, killed by the cure you claimed would save us all. Tell me, Edmund, in your final moments, was it worth it? Wolf opened his mouth, but no words came, just dust. He crumbled, collapsed, dissolved into ash and bone fragments, and the remnants of a man who'd lived 240 years, gone in 90 seconds. Silence filled the tower. Alaric turned to Isolde. The old woman stood at the chamber entrance, tears streaming down her ancient face. Isolde Graves, you confessed to treason, feeding Wolf information, blood samples, schedules, for 15 years. Isolde knelt, head bowed. I did, and I have no excuse, only regret and a request. Let me serve the child, for however many years I have left, unpaid, unrecognized. Just let me try to atone. Vivian stepped forward, placed a hand on Isolde's shoulder. You saved Serafina's life, caught Miriam before she could act. That counts for something. Alaric was silent. Then, you'll serve, but not as head of household. As Serafina's guardian, you'll protect her, teach her, and if you ever betray us again, there won't be a third chance. Isolde's voice cracked. Thank you, my lord. I won't fail again. Alaric looked at the remains of Wolf, at Vivian, holding Serafina, at the family they'd become through deception and blood and impossible choices. Commander Stone, gather the evidence, medical records, financial transactions, everything. Send it to the Council, to Genetech Consortium, to every vampire house in Europe. Let them know what happened here, what Edmund Wolfe did, and what happens to those who harm children for profit. Stone saluted, began collecting documents. "It's over," Alaric said quietly. Vivian looked at Serafina, at the child who was healthy now, speaking, healed. "Yes, it's over. Let's go home." 3 months later, February 2025. The trial of Dr. Wolfe's associates was public, broadcast across the vampire world via encrypted channels that reached every major house, every elder council, every vampire stronghold from Beijing to Buenos Aires. Vivian stood in the observation gallery of the Grand Council Hall. Below, on a raised platform surrounded by silver chains and binding wards, stood the defendants, 18 mercenaries, 3 vampire collaborators, all convicted. Dr. Miriam Cross, 27, red hair pulled back, medical coat exchanged for prisoner's gray. She'd been caught by Isolde 23 minutes before she could inject Serafina. Isolde had broken her arm in 3 places, dislocated her shoulder, then held her at knife point until guards arrived. Miriam's sentence: exile beyond the veil. Banishment to the spaces between realms where time moves differently, and return was mathematically impossible. She'd age, eventually die. Alone, in darkness. A fitting end for someone who'd helped murder 47 women. Dr. Helena Voss, 32, blonde. The woman who'd tried to throw Serafina off a cliff, captured by Commander Stone after Vivian's jump. She'd fought, killed 2 guards before being subdued. Her sentence: execution. Public. Witnessed by every vampire house. A message: children were untouchable. Those who harmed them faced absolute justice. The remaining mercenaries and collaborators received sentences ranging from exile to 50 years in the deep prisons, the places beneath Edinburgh where vampires kept their worst criminals, where sunlight never reached and time stretched like taffy. But the trial's real impact wasn't the sentences, it was the evidence. Vivian had testified 3 hours, presented medical records, genetic analysis, the names of 47 women who died in Wolfe's experiments, their families, their stories. She'd shown the Council Serafina's injection sites, the depletion charts, the Silentium-9 compounds, made them see, really see, what had been done to a 3-year-old child in the name of profit. Lord Casimir had wept, 842 years old. He'd wept openly, in front of the entire council. "Never again," he'd said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "Never again will we permit this. Children, hybrid or pure, human or vampire, are sacred, untouchable. Any who violate this, any who harm them, will face what Edmund Wolfe faced: death, absolute, final." The council had voted unanimously. New laws, protecting hybrid children, establishing genetic research ethics, requiring consent, oversight, accountability. The Bloodline Amendment passed, 12 votes to 0, for the first time in 3,000 years. Hybrids were recognized as legitimate heirs, full legal status, equal rights. Serafina's position as heir to House Thornfield was unassailable, but the bigger shockwave hit the human world. Genetech Consortium collapsed within 2 weeks of the trial. Stock price plummeted from $83 per share to 4 cents. The CEO, CFO, and 7 board members were arrested by FBI agents outside their Manhattan headquarters, charged with illegal genetic research, human experimentation, conspiracy to commit murder. The $60 million in funding seized, redistributed by court order to the families of the 47 women. Not enough, never enough, but acknowledgement of suffering, of loss, of lives destroyed by greed. The pharmaceutical industry reeled. 8 other companies were investigated. 3 more executives arrested. The entire field of genetic research faced new regulations, oversight. Ethics boards with real power. Vivian had done that. One surgeon, one mother, refusing to accept lies, demanding truth, changing two worlds. 6 months later, May 2025. Spring came to Thornfield Hall like a miracle. For 612 years, the estate had existed in perpetual winter. Mist, cold, darkness, a reflection of Alaric's isolation, his grief, his loneliness. But now, flowers bloomed. Vivian stood in the east garden, watching Serafina chase butterflies through rose bushes that had been dormant for decades. The child's laughter echoed off stone walls, clear, joyful, perfect. Serafina was nearly 4 now, tall for her age, strong. Her vocabulary had exploded. She spoke 3 languages, English, French, the old vampire tongue that Alaric taught her. She attended lessons daily, history, mathematics, science. Vampire tutors taught her the ancient ways. Vivian taught her medicine, anatomy, the Hippocratic Oath. But more than knowledge, Serafina had learned compassion. She used her healing abilities weekly, helping wounded guards, treating Isolde's arthritis, mending broken bones with a touch and golden light. "I can make people better, like Mama taught me," she'd say. Proud, determined. Alaric appeared beside Vivian, silent, the way vampires moved. He watched their daughter with an expression that still surprised Vivian. Softness, wonder, love. "The council approved the Institute's expansion," he said. "Full funding, 50 million, to build a teaching hospital, train hybrid physicians. You'll need to hire staff, establish curriculum." Vivian smiled. "Thornfield Medical Institute has a nice ring to it." "You've changed everything. In 6 months, laws that stood for millennia, overturned, research ethics, established, hybrid rights, recognized." He looked at her. "All because one human woman refused to believe her child was dead. I'm a mother. Giving up wasn't an option." "No, it wasn't." Alaric's hand found hers, squeezed gently. "Partnership. That's what we have. Not romance, not obligation, just family." The word still felt new, but right. Vivian had lost her biological family. Sister dead, mother gone years before. But she'd gained this: Alaric, Serafina, Commander Stone, Isolde, even the gruff kitchen staff who'd learned to make human coffee just for her. Bound not by blood alone, but by choice, by sacrifice, by shared determination to protect what mattered. Below. Serafina waved. "Mama, Papa, come see. The roses. They're singing." Alaric looked at Vivian, raised an eyebrow. "Singing? She has excellent hearing, hybrid senses, probably hears the bees, the wind through petals. Or she's wonderfully strange. That too. Together." They descended to the garden, joined Serafina among the roses. The child grabbed both their hands, made them kneel, showed them a butterfly. Blue wings, delicate. "Look, it trusts me, doesn't fly away." "Because you're gentle," Vivian said. "Kind. It knows you won't hurt it. I would never hurt anything small, or weak, or scared." Serafina's expression was solemn, old beyond her years. "Because I was small and weak and scared. And you saved me, both of you. So I'll save others when I'm big." Alaric's hand found Vivian's again. Squeezed. "You will, we have no doubt." That evening, after Serafina was asleep, Vivian and Alaric stood in the grand hall. The chandeliers above them glowed. Not cold silver, warm gold. The light had changed 6 months ago, during Serafina's official coronation. She'd stood before the council, age 3.5, wearing a small crown, silver and moonstone. Been asked the traditional question, "What is the foundation of your rule?" Serafina had looked at Vivian, at Alaric, at the assembled lords, and spoken one word: family. The chandeliers had blazed, changed color, changed temperature, changed everything, as if the hall itself recognized truth, approved, accepted. Now. 6 months later, that light remained, a reminder, a promise. Alaric gestured to a portrait, newly hung. 3 figures, Vivienne, Alaric, Serafina, painted by a master, commissioned by the council, official, recognized. A family, immortalized. Strange, Alaric said. 612 years. I never thought I'd see myself in a family portrait again. After Morgana died, I assumed, that chapter was closed. Chapters don't close, they evolve. You didn't lose a family, we built a new one. Built from lies, deception, theft. No, built despite those things. We took what was broken and made it whole. That's not tragedy, that's triumph. Alaric was silent, then, quietly. Thank you for not giving up, for jumping off a cliff, for being insane enough to challenge a 612-year-old vampire king in his own court. You're welcome. For being stubborn enough to kneel before a council, to change 3,000-year-old laws, to let a human woman teach you about family. They stood in comfortable silence, the kind that came after battles, after survival, after choosing each other despite every reason not to. Finally, Vivienne spoke. What do we do now? Now, we live. We teach Serafina. We heal the sick. We exist together for however long we have. I'm mortal. I'll age, die eventually. Eventually, but not today, not tomorrow. And when that day comes, I'll grieve. Then I'll remember. The woman who jumped off a cliff to save a daughter she'd known for 3 days. Who changed the world without magic, just determination. And I'll make sure Serafina remembers that her mother was extraordinary. Vivienne's eyes burned, but she didn't look away. She'll have you, to guide her, teach her, be the father you couldn't be for 3 years. We'll both guide her. For as long as we can, that's all anyone gets, mortal or immortal, time, and what we do with it. 5 years later. 2030. Dr. Vivienne Ashford stood in the Thornfield Medical Institute lecture hall. 40 students, vampire and human, learning hybrid medicine, techniques she'd pioneered, saved lives with, shared freely. She was 47 now, silver threading through her hair, lines around her eyes, mortal aging, but her hands were steady, her mind sharp. She'd stopped trying to fight time, accepted it instead. In the front row, Serafina sat. 8 years old now, tall, brilliant, already assisting with basic procedures. Her hybrid abilities had evolved, controlled, powerful. She could heal compound fractures, regenerate tissue, perform medical miracles. But more than power, she had compassion, had inherited Vivienne's drive to heal, Alaric's sense of honor. Both. Neither. Her own person. Vivienne finished the lecture. The students filed out. Serafina remained. Mama, Lord Pembroke asked me to examine his grandson. Genetic decay. Advanced. Can I try the new technique you taught me? If his family consents. And I supervise, yes. I'll make you proud. You already do, every day. Serafina hugged her, then ran off. To save lives. To heal. To be what she'd been created for. Not a weapon, not a product. A healer. Alaric appeared in the doorway. He looked the same. Immortal. Unchanging. But his eyes had changed. Warmed, softened. She's remarkable. She's ours. Yes, for however long we have. Vivienne's hair was graying. Her joints ached some mornings. Mortality was catching up. But not today. Today she was healthy, alive, present. Alaric, when I'm gone, when time runs out, promise me, you'll tell her. About the jump, about choosing her, about what family means. Every day. I promise. Good. Because that's the only thing that matters, not the medicine, not the research, not the laws we changed, just that she knows she was worth jumping for. Alaric pulled something from his pocket, a silver locket, inside, a photo. Vivienne and Serafina, the day they'd met, the moment of recognition. This, when you're gone, this stays in the library, not as a relic, As a reminder, Vivian took it, examined it. Her younger self, 3 years of grief in her eyes. Serafina, reaching, calling. Mama? The word that changed everything. 6 months after a mother leaped into darkness, a silver stethoscope rests in Thornfield Hall Library. Not as a medical tool, as a testament. Beside it, a locket. Inside, a photo, mother and daughter. The moment of first recognition. When a 3-year-old girl spoke and changed 2 worlds, the stethoscope belonged to Dr. Vivian Ashford, cardiac surgeon. Mother, the woman who refused to believe her child was dead. Vivian Ashford learned that motherhood isn't carrying a child for 9 months. It's choosing to fall so your child doesn't have to. That honor isn't victory. It's showing up when you're terrified, jumping when others freeze, keeping promises when the world calls you foolish. And Lord Alaric Thornfield learned that in his 612 years, true strength wasn't immortality or combat. It was kneeling before those who earned respect, admitting when you've been deceived, letting a human woman teach an ancient king what love requires. Because sometimes the person society dismisses as just a surrogate is the bravest in the room. The one they call just human is the strongest. The child they say is broken is the one who will heal the world. Serafina Thornfield didn't need magic to speak. She needed someone who refused to believe she was gone, who listened when silence screamed, who jumped when falling meant dying. And now, 5 years later, she heals the sick, bridges human and vampire. Not because of genetics, because she learned from a mother who jumped and a father who knelt. That power means nothing without compassion. That family isn't blood alone, it's choice, sacrifice. The bonds we forge when we fight for hard truths. The silver stethoscope will outlive them all. A reminder that some things, some precious, irreplaceable things, are worth jumping off cliffs to protect, even if falling hurts. Especially if falling hurts, because that's what mothers do, what fathers learn, what families mean. In the garden at Thornfield Hall, a butterfly lands on a child's hand, blue wings, delicate. It doesn't fly away, because she's gentle, kind, and she knows in her bones and blood and the cells her mother gave her, that some things are worth protecting, worth jumping for, worth falling for, worth everything. Have you ever made a choice that terrified you? Ever jumped when every instinct screamed to stay safe? Share your story below. Hit subscribe. Tomorrow, another story of honor, sacrifice, and bonds that transcend death. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing love despite terror.